conflict, politics, military-industrial complex, technology, war. The Flash Traffic Podcast.
Here we go.
You also
Dude,
are wearing a boring-ass tank top, Tony.
Dude, he punked us
This
with
is the only
like
one I
a
could
unicorn.
find. I had to look. I had
with a
to
unicorn
search for this
tank
tank top. I had to search for this tank top, and it's
I can
like
tell
a
we all
size
have the bodies wear
large,
tank tops.
too.
You should add a little color and flair to them. I'm just saying, guys.
Yeah. Professor Matisek is wearing a pink tank top with a rainbow on it, and it has a unicorn humping a dinosaur. So very, very scientific.
Riding
a T-Rex into
Riding,
battle.
sorry, not
Riding a
humping.
T-Rex into battle.
Of course, not humping. Hey, just apropos of something, on the bottom of the front page of the New York Times today, I did not plan this. I did not coordinate with the New York Times. It is a story about a tank top that is super hot now. It's called the Sacred Tank Top. Mormons, as everyone knows, Mormons are forced to wear undergarments that are like a white
Yeah,
t-shirt.
it's the magic underpants.
And like, yes, the magic underpants. Well, apparently it's just been approved that they can now wear the sacred tank top. And it is a hot commodity.
Well,
you
because
can't
it's
get it in
fireproof,
America.
bulletproof, stab-proof.
Yeah, of course it is.
Yeah.
It's been blessed by something.
Yeah.
It's a completely legitimate religion, completely legitimate sacred tank top. Apparently you can't get it in the United States yet because they rolled it out in hot climate countries first.
Okay.
Like they should have done in 1865 or whenever the fuck.
Oh, if you didn't hear the good news, they're going to build a
What?
Mormon temple, a massive one, right in the middle of a Flying Horse up here in Colorado Springs.
What? Congratulations.
Eric,
hey,
I don't know
no,
where
you
you
just
live.
docked yourself. Hold
Yeah.
on. Don't dock yourself on the internet because in case you don't know, I have no idea how to edit the video. So basically, this is like virtually doing a live stream.
No, I don't.
Because
I'm
I
in
can't-
Tucson.
It doesn't bother me. Like,
What's
there's
your address?
There's 2,200 homes in Flying Horse. You will not find mine.
They'll find you.
No, I'm
Trust me,
actually glad
they'll
that you
find you.
mentioned New York Times because I thought you were going to
Yes.
mock the fact that New York Times today had something from the editorial fucking staff team that says like the name of the article is Trump walks away from Ukraine now. He looks weak and Putin wins. And I'm like, yeah, like Trump's team and
Putin
like-
wins.
cares what the New York Times thinks of their admin.
Nobody cares about what anybody thinks about any of this shit
Yeah.
because it changes every day.
I do.
Okay, except for Eric.
Well, no,
Eric Leone.
If this was by the editorial fucking staff of like, I don't know, what is it, Newsmax or InfoWars, the Trump admin would probably listen, but it's not. It's by, the
Less
left-wing-
credible.
less credible, New
credible
York
news
Times.
sources, the fake news.
Yes.
I saw Trump. Trump did it just yesterday. He's like, somebody from some reputable news source, fairly reputable, asked him a question. What are you going to do now? Something about, what are you going to do with Putin now? And he's like, well, you're the fake news. Or you're the fake news, right? And then he went off on a little tangent about fake news. But yeah, New York Times, the newspaper of record for the United States. So I tend to believe it.
Wow.
But nobody gives a shit about any of this because it's all bullshit. That brings us to the first article I wanted to talk about today. And I'm going to share my screen if I can do it.
Approved.
If I have the technology here.
Is that the foreign policy one?
Yeah, foreign policy.
Yeah.
Foreign policy. Share. It's by Michael Kimmich, who apparently it says he works at the Wilson Center, but as most academics are aware, the Wilson Center got doged pretty hard. So I don't know. Maybe you've heard about what's going on with the Wilson Center now, but it got doged and it got shut down. It was a think tank.
Yeah.
Well, the whole thing shut down?
Well,
That's the
they
thing.
they fired like 130 academics, and I don't know
Listen,
how big
they
their staff
they
was.
probably
Basically
had to
everybody.
90%. Yeah, 90%.
It was
cuts.
it was more than 90. There was only like 4 people, I think, that were left with a job after April 1st. Musk sent them an email that said, quit or be fired.
So all they have left is probably like the janitor, the director, and 2 random academics. That
Yeah,
are
Who
like
cares?
that's
Academics
basically it.
don't contribute anything to our society. Who cares? Get rid of them. If you're educated, we
That-
don't need you. Why would we need you?
Absolutely. You make such a good point. Look, the Wilson Center, which I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Frankie, the Wilson Center is like, they're centrist, but they're slightly left leaning, but they try to be centrist. But with 130 academics, hold on, I think I have a, let me share this screen. Let's go, since we're talking about it, let me share this screen. With 130 academics, you can probably guess that, here we go. Trump shutters the DC foreign policy think tank, Wilson Center. With 130 academics, you can almost guarantee that at least half of them are doing some bullshit research that they're interested in that doesn't necessarily forward national security policy.
Well, that they probably aren't teaching any classes, or if they are teaching classes, they're being paid to adjunct at Georgetown and elsewhere.
Yeah, they're paying, they're getting $2,000 a semester to adjunct because that's where academia is going.
Well, no,
They're
so the reason why I make that comment is because many European think tanks, they actually do teach actual classes so people can take classes at the think tank, and that's a way for you to be, in one sense,
relevant
and gainfully employed teaching at the think tank, like actual classes and lectures and stuff. So maybe this is a way to start forcing think tanks in DC to do more than just, hey, we think and we write things in our own think tank website blog and say we publish a lot.
Well, it's that old dichotomy between doing something that's relevant and useful in foreign policy and having academic freedom. Basically, academic freedom means you do whatever the fuck you want, even if it's some stupid shit about the sexual reproductive system of Republicans in Alabama.
Well, it's also that, but also like I agreed in the contract I will only be at work physically for 2 hours on Thursdays from 1 to 3. That's the other part, academic freedom.
Hey, academia is hard. Are you saying it's not a hard life? Come on.
Hey, if I could mention that, I went back to school for a year or whatever through the senior service college before I bounced because what was left of my career was over. That's neither here nor there. But yeah, you had professors that were available 1 day a week for a window of time, really maybe several hours. And that's it. You weren't going to talk to them. You weren't going to interact with them. They'd show up like 1 minute before class, do their class, bounce right when the class was over. Like you had no way to interact with these guys. Because at this point, some of these tenured guys, and I'm talking at Harvard, working's a side hustle. Like teaching's a side hustle. They got real shit to do, like be a board member, do an interview, try to get their private little LLC off the ground. It was interesting how about half my professors were there to do the minimum. They maybe taught this class for a decade. They were on remote control, come in, do their spiel, bounce, have a nice day. And like you weren't going to interact with these guys or women unless you got under schedule for that 1 hour a time once a week. I found that interesting where they're in, they're done, they're out, have a nice day, go fuck yourself.
Yeah. I don't think anybody is under any illusions that academia or academe is a difficult profession. I mean, once you get your PhD, and you get once you get tenured, yeah, you don't get paid that much, really, relative to the 20 years of study that you do. So, yeah, you got to get perks other ways by basically not working much or working on, academic, journal articles. What was that one fake journal article about sexual aggression in dog parks? And they completely faked that.
What are you talking about?
There's a journal article that these guys just completely faked. And it was all about masculine toxicity at dog parks and whatever.
Hey, Frankie,
Anyways.
how tall are you?
I'm 6'1".
Shit, you look like you got some guns on you, bro. You look like a
Air
lineman.
Force pilot, man, 20 years in.
Damn, bro. Look at those
It's
cannons.
rough.
Although I was going to mention,
Right? Ooh, what is
Tony
that?
knows about this, but I
Yeah.
literally just tore my Achilles about a week ago.
Worst
These guns
injury.
maybe will get bigger
ever.
or smaller. I don't know.
Flying what? What were you? What
I was
airframe were you
playing
flying when you
pickleball.
tore your?
Tore my Achilles at peak pickleball in Colorado Springs at the
Don't you're
Chapel
doxing,
Hills
you're
Mall.
doxing yourself, dude. Stop.
Dude,
you
that's
gotta
like the
stop
worst
doxing
injury
yourself.
ever. That is a horrible injury.
I will say,
Oh my god! Stop doxing yourself. You're gonna have fanboys showing up at your pickleball.
I actually will say, I mean, I'm guessing you guys have never torn your Achilles.
No.
It did not hurt as much as I thought it would. I remember watching Aaron Rodgers tear it live on TV in the Jets game a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, it was
But when
horrible.
it happened to me, I ran back to get a ball and just took a weird step, I guess, and I felt like somebody had just punched me really hard in the back of my calf. So like when I collapsed and fell down for like a few seconds, I was looking around being like, hey, who the fuck hit me? Because I was like disoriented, and then it was clear like, oh, my calf kind of hurts, and then I get up to walk, and it's like, yep, not able to really walk, and then did the.
It's scientifically proven that a torn Achilles makes you fucking crazy. If you look at Aaron Rodgers, if you listen to him on anything now, that dude is a loon. He is out there. He tore his Achilles and it fucked up his brain, and now he's a fucking lunatic. And he's talking about every conspiracy theory in the world.
Yeah, he's the dude
that
during
guy's off the
COVID
rails.
who took ivermectin, which is a horse
Deworming.
dewormer. I'm like,
Well, it's
I
an
failed to see the
antiviral
connection.
something or other. It's an antiviral something as well.
What a
Supposedly the people who
jackass.
invented it got the Nobel Prize, I guess.
That's right. That's right. That's the argument.
I don't know.
Anyways, can we lift and shift here on?
Yeah, the Jets suck.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Here we go. I'm going to share the screen again. I don't know if I even shared this. Okay. Russia has started losing the war in Ukraine. The military tide may have turned against Putin.
Was that written
is the
3 years
subtitle.
ago?
Yeah, you would think it was written
This
like a
article is
year
written
ago.
every few months, actually. It just depends on the name of the author
It's
who writes it.
recycled.
That's right. That's
Okay.
right. Michael Kimmage from the formerly Wilson Center.
Man, poor guy. Is
Look,
he out of a
this guy-
job?
Yeah, this is his job. His job is to write stuff.
But
and
is he
then-
out of a job? Is
and
he
then
fired?
Oh, I'm sure.
Was
they're
this the
all
last
fired. They're
article
gone.
he wrote before he got canned?
No, it just
probably
came out.
Well, he probably wrote this. like,
Freelancer. He's freelancing
months
now
ago.
that he's got no job. He got a lot
he
of
wrote
time
it
on
2
his
months
hands.
ago. Well, this is not going to, in my opinion, this is not going to help him get a job because it's completely bullshit. It's complete horseshit.
How's it complete bullshit?
Well, let's break it down.
Well, first up,
Let me get-
it came out
Yeah.
May 19th, so it's only had about 2 weeks to fester.
Okay.
And
Well, it's
obviously have an
11,
impact.
actually 11
because-
days. But he probably wrote this hopefully
Hey, Tony,
2 months
don't
ago.
be a know-it-all, bro.
What do you mean know-it-all? I didn't
It's
say
been 11
anything.
days. Don't be a know-it-all, bro. Just
Okay.
roll with it. Keep the flow going, bro.
All right. I apologize. I didn't think either of you heard that. Okay, but it doesn't matter. Okay, he breaks it down into two things. First of all, he says that, and I think you guys read this. He says that a war of attrition requires a lot of effort in all facets of governments, the military-industrial complex, but also diplomacy, because he needs a lot of
So
That's
water
what he
is
says.
wet. Water is wet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but by saying that, he's basically saying, look, Russia's in trouble because they've screwed up diplomacy with the West. What? Who gives a
Sure.
shit? Putin doesn't give a shit about diplomacy with the West. If he did, he would have showed up in Turkey a couple weeks ago.
And he would have said, yeah, I'll stop blowing up Ukrainian infrastructure and civilian centers. But he doesn't care.
Right? He doesn't care.
He doesn't care.
He doesn't care because look, he's doing fine diplomatically with his constituency, the global South, China, Iran, North Korea. Look at all the people that showed up on the May 9th parade. That will tell you how he's doing on the diplomatic front. He's doing just fine.
Yeah, he has plenty
Putin's fine.
of cash flow because of the oil, natural gas, and timber, gold, and other natural resources his country has. Again, is he fucking over the long-term economic viability of a state, yeah, but that's, it's very much, like a Keynesian thing, like what happens in the long run. In the long run, we're all dead anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
He'll be fine in the long run. That's like Kim Jong-un, that dipshit. He's fine. He's able to funnel in money, siphon in goods. He lives a good life. No one else around him does. But same with Putin. He'll always be able to corrupt enough, steal enough, get his Wagner lackeys in Africa to funnel enough cash and gold in. He'll be fine. The whole country around him can fall apart, but he personally will insulate himself and be fine. And that's all he cares about, and all his oligarchical lackeys. As long as they can siphon and steal enough money from the national economy, and they can, they'll be fine. They'll have nice clothes. Kids will go to nice Western schools. They go to Starbucks. They're okay. Who cares?
Yeah, that argument is pretty weak. His second argument in this article is that Russia's facing two military dilemmas. One is the dead Russian fallacy. He doesn't say that. He doesn't quote me in the article, which he should. But it's the dead Russian fallacy. He said we're looking at a million Russian casualties. So this is hurting Russia, and eventually they'll have to capitulate. The old dead Russian fallacy argument that has been going on for the last 2.5 years. And I do not see that as a valid logic.
The more important thing is it's no different than, I guess you say the previous words, but the fact that I think Tony and I have actually BS'd about this multiple times with lots of Sapporo beers, is the fact that these aren't really what you would consider ethnically. These aren't really ethnic white Russians being killed. And when we say ethnic white Russians, we could even actually narrow that down to cosmopolitan white Russians that live basically in Moscow, St. Petersburg, Minsk. Even it's not those people.
Minsk is
Belarus. It's the rural people of Eastern Russia and the Caucasus area. It's not. I guess you say like the Western Russians, and is that a little biased and racist in one sense? I guess, but it's not though. It's the reality.
Russians are biased and racist, so
okay. No, and it'd be no different if the U.S. had a war and elites like the kids of elites in Washington, New York City, LA, and San Francisco, if their kids were dying in a war, that would actually have much more of an impact. When it's just rural kids from Texas and Kansas and inner city youth from Chicago and Atlanta dying in a war, it just doesn't really raise the needle because these aren't.
I did a deployment with Donald Trump Jr. in Iraq in like 08, 09. He and I served in a unit together in Fallujah. So I give him credit for not being an insulated elite who doesn't pull his weight. Oh, my bad. No, he didn't do shit. No, I didn't see him. He never did serve in the military. Yeah, none of those fucking insulated elites. No, they didn't pull their weight. Oh, my bad.
Like the Kennedys, like John Kerry, like the George W.
and
Bush.
Most of the time, even
like
when these elites actually do serve, most of the time they end up in cushy guard and reserve jobs.
Correct.
Sure.
That's the fig leaf of
George H.W. Bush was a guard.
Yes.
Pilot,
guard Air Force guy, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's been kind of the norm, basically since like the 60s and 70s, essentially.
Right.
You get into cushy
feudalism,
guard reserve jobs.
You mean since feudalism? Rich people sending the poor to fight wars. There's nothing new there. But anyways,
you're right. There literally is nothing new here, right?
The dead Russian fallacy. The Russians, Putin said either yesterday or the day before, he said they're recruiting 50 to 60,000 Russians a month.
That's a lot.
It's probably too high. He's probably full of shit. But
there's also nothing else going on in their economy either. I mean, that's also part of it, right? They're just on a war footing. So that's the only employment you have left. If you're not in the mines or cutting down trees or drilling for oil, it's just go off to Ukraine and kill people. Or if you're good enough at doing that, then you get to join the African Corps and go off to Africa and kill Africans for gold and other natural resources.
This is where I think Russia's incredible poverty is to their advantage, because they can get a continuing stream of broke ass, impoverished people to get whacked for $25,000 bonus. You probably can't do that in Western Europe or the U.S. That's probably not enough. But for them, that's like 2, 3, 4 years income. Mom and dad you die, mom and dad get a new cheap car. Hey, it's a wash.
Yeah.
Yes,
I'm actually glad
it's
you
a
mentioned
strength
that.
for them.
No, I'm actually glad you mentioned that because I think that's also it has a historical legacy. Because I remember when I was a cadet at the Air Force Academy, I still distinctly remember to this day one of my professors talking about their time serving in the Balkans on a peacekeeping force where they had to work alongside the Russian soldiers. And he said the Russian peacekeepers were nuts and crazy. And he's like, I later found out the reason why they're nuts and crazy and don't care about being killed is because the death benefits to their wife, their family, their kids is so great that it actually is more worthwhile to die in combat than it is to just keep on being in the Russian
To
army.
live.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's something that has stuck with me and like for over 20 years now.
It hasn't changed.
No.
So the Russians are recruiting more than they're losing. The
Interesting.
Ukrainians are still not recruiting enough. They're still hauling off people, standing outside of dance clubs
they're
and
draft
nightclubs.
dodgers.
And
Yeah, draft dodgers get recruited.
I'm just saying they're still having recruiting problems.
Yeah.
And I think Kimmage mentions the slow rate of, the 118 years issue that we talked about yesterday or Wednesday. It's going to take at this rate, it'll take the Russians 118 years to take over Ukraine. Also another stupid fucking argument that I can't stand.
Why do you have a problem with math, Tony? Why do you got simple fucking math? If you take the square miles and see how far they're going, that's actually true.
That's great.
It is
You're right.
118 years. Why do you got a problem with math, dude?
Let's do some simple math. If the Russians are losing 30,000 casualties a month, but they're recruiting 45,000 a month, and Putin is 72 years old, and he'll probably live to be at least Biden's age of 82.
He's 75.
He's 75? Putin's 75?
Pretty sure. Thought he was 50 in year
I'll
2000.
fact check that for you guys. I didn't know.
Fact check that.
Dude,
I thought he
value
was
added.
72.
He looks
Value
quite
added.
spry.
Botox. He Botoxes the shit out of his
72.
He definitely, but it's 72.
He's
Tony
72.
got lucky.
Okay.
And he's
He got
from
lucky.
from
He didn't know.
elitist St. Petersburg was where he was born.
So Putin is 72 right now. Biden is 82. Let's say Putin lives for another 10 years. He keeps this war going for 10 years. They're recruiting 15,000 a month more than they're losing. In 10 years, that's 600,000 more.
You're guessing now.
600,000 more soldiers than they have now, which is basically double the army in Ukraine. So in 10 years, they're going to double their army. How does that look for Ukraine? When Ukraine is actually, their army is actually getting smaller or barely staying the same. So in 10 years, just doing that 118 year to take over the entire country math, it looks really bad for Ukraine.
Which
So
is why
not
at some
118
point,
years.
which is
How
why
about
at some
10 years?
point, the French or the Brits or the EU are going to have to send a expeditionary force to basically help them hold the line. That's what's going to have to happen.
If they're that concerned.
The French and the Germans already backtracked on all of that like a month ago. They said, we're not doing that. We're not sending troops. The UK is still
too, right?
Yeah, the British are like, oh, we need to like this.
Yeah, British said they can't do that.
So look, this argument, and then he goes on. One more argument that he makes is Ukraine's will to fight, surprise the Russians. That's going to be a problem moving forward. Okay, but look, they still have a recruiting problem. So if they have this huge will to fight, defeat the Russians, take back Crimea, Krim Nash, Crimea is ours. They're not showing it. So I pretty much think this entire article is bullshit.
You're jealous because he's got a legit job at a legit think tank, bringing in big money.
He did have a legit job at a legit
cut
think tank.
hay and sell it on the weekends at a county fair.
Yes, I am jealous, but I do not have any schadenfreude that Musk doged his think tank in his job. Because now he's on the open market competing with podcasters.
But again, a big chunk of those think tanker academics, they're just professional bullshit artists. They get really good at writing one or two topics, and then they network their way into the DC circle, hope that they can get picked by either the Dems or the Republicans for the next administration for a random appointee job, and you get to be a bullshit artist while doing that, having no real management and leadership skills, and then you cycle back to the think tank when your admin's not in power.
Yeah.
You just described Tony's entire career strategy in about 60 seconds.
But there's no think tanks in Colorado. There's no think tanks here.
I know. See that gums up his plans a little bit.
But there could be, because think tanks can just magically appear if you get a robust enough donor network. Because I have seen it, and I have worked at a think tank that just magically appeared because people wanted other people to write things that agreed with their opinion, and so they throw a bunch of money at it. So if I can get enough donors that want to, want me to just say whatever they want me to say, then I can start my own think tank. Just like last episode on the podcast, we talked about JP Morgan Chase and the Center for Global Bullshit, whatever it's called.
Geopolitical bullshit.
The Center for Geopolitical Bullshit. Cholet is the director.
He cashed in. He cashed in on his government connections.
He did.
Got a big, fat, cushy bank job. He wrote an article that a freshman in college in political science could have written, made it easily digestible. Actually, brilliant on him to play the system like that and get paid for it.
Yeah, well, I think this article, this idea that the Russians are losing is complete and utter horseshit. And let me get this one little point because it's important for me to say this. I don't think it does Ukraine any good. I've said this many times. It doesn't do Ukraine any good to try to gaslight the West or even Ukrainians into believing that they are not at huge risk currently, because they are at huge risk.
They're invaded. 20% of their country's taken over. Of course it is. Yet, an article was written last week about the breakthrough in Pokrovsk, and the dudes crossed a road. Dudes, there's your break. They crossed a road. The Russian military, huge military, high tolerance for casualties, largest country in the planet, crossed a fucking road. And that merited an article which equates now to a breakthrough when you go 100 yards. Hence, your nonsense of the 118-year fallacy that you're trying to sell to us here, that really doesn't work. They're really not going to grind. It's really not going to take that long. All of a sudden, they're just going to break through or whatever. It all depends on how this thing goes. Things don't stay the same. The environment's going to change. Putin's not going to be in power forever. Zelensky isn't. The environment can and will change. Both sides will adapt. So we'll see how this thing plays out. Yet, here we are 3.5 years into it, and the Russian army of ass clowns are now attacking on dirt bikes, electrical scooters, and Chinese golf carts, if they're lucky.
And they are still taking back twice the territory that they took last month already this month. And they're taking back at a higher rate than they've ever taken back territory since November of last year. So November of 2024. So they are definitely, the momentum is with them. And grinding. Next week it might not be, and then we'll be saying, "Oh, the Russians are about to lose," or "Oh, the Russians are about to win." But I would say this: this is my final thought on this idea. And
bullshit!
You guys can chime in.
You'll never stop talking about this. But
no, today, right now.
Oh, today. Okay, gotcha.
Ukraine was barely fucking holding on when the West, collectively, the Europe and the United States, was in full support mode. Now that the United States, so they've lost half, not counting, hopefully, intelligence and maybe some strategic air defense stuff, but they've basically lost half of their support with Trump. They were barely holding on before that. Now they're fucked. Completely fucked.
So what's your prediction? So give your prediction.
Well, they better sue for peace at this rate. They better sue for peace and hope that the Russians don't go to ground.
You said
the training pipelines.
3 years ago, you said they should have sued for peace.
I did not say that 3 years ago.
Yeah, you did.
I did not.
No, but
Listen, this is
I
Tony.
think
I did
If
not.
Tony was in the American Revolutionary War, he would have surrendered to the British
did-
after the first 12 months because it was too fucking hard. It gets too hard, you just quit. That's what he does. But that's why he was military intelligence, because that's what MI does in the Army. It's too hard, you just fucking quit and go home. I'm done.
no. But
Is that's your final thought on this topic of whether Russia's actually losing the war now?
That's my commentary
that
on your weak
I would
response.
have given up to the British. That's
You're
your
a typical
that's-
academic.
That's your analysis.
You're a
Thank you.
typical mealy-mouthed snowflake academic with no fucking grit.
What do
I'm
you
glad we
mean?
got Frankie on here, who's got a ball sack and will render opinion based on some
Okay.
grit. Thank you.
no, so I just want to interject that, like, Tony, you were with me on that
Yeah.
trip in Germany, where we
Yes.
visited all the European Union training bases in Germany,
Yes.
and obviously the U.S.-led training mission at Grafenwehr. I mean, as far as we could tell, if the Ukrainians were on the verge of collapse, the number of people they would be sending to these training programs would be going down, and the age of the troops would be going up. And yet we saw the inverse of that. The numbers haven't really gone down. They're filling 80-90% of the training slots, and the age of the average Ukrainian training, which used to be 44, has been trending down to about 34 to 30. Now,
Young guy.
I think Tony did tell me that's an interesting trend when we're on that trip, because you were saying the average person getting killed in Ukraine, in the Ukrainian military, is what, 27, 28?
Right. I think the average age of the soldier in Ukraine at that time went from 46 down to like 42 or 40. I don't remember the exact number, but the average age of the Ukrainian getting killed in the trenches was younger, like 25 or 26.
Yeah.
So, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But okay, that's one indicator.
But you need people to fight and die in this war. Obviously, the Russians can generate at 3 to 5 times the rate as the Ukrainians, at least.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe. We don't know. We don't know the numbers. I could take a guess that it's probably 3 times, 3 to 1.
Yeah.
Regeneration.
And then that becomes a question of, are the Ukrainians being killed at the same rate in comparison to that 3 to 1 ratio? I know you have your theories that the Ukrainians being killed or Ukrainians killing Russians is a 1 to 2, or maybe at best a 1 to 3.
It depends on the place and the time.
Yeah.
So in Bakhmut, it was probably 1 to 3. Now it's probably back up to 1 to 5, 1 to 6. Because the Ukrainians have gone to ground basically, and they're doing the wall of drone defense now.
Yeah.
And the Russians are still pressing forward, although they have slowed down the last couple of months. And that's one of the dangers for Ukraine, I think, is that Russia just goes to ground. They just stop these ridiculous meat waves, and they reconsolidate their forces for who knows how long. It's probably not going to happen in the summer. They want that spring and summer offensive fighting season.
Well, and at a certain point, if they
march.
just want to actually be more efficient and effective about this, which again, the Russian army never is, but at some point, it's that they're going to have to be like, hey, let's just develop a bunch of like underground shredding like machines, and that's how we'll just take the war underground. I guess if you remember the old cartoon of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, didn't Shredder have like that little fucking shredder vehicle he could shred wherever he wanted underground? I'm not saying the Russians need to build something like that, but like that to me seems like sort of a natural outcome to this war if you can't operate within 20 to 30 clicks of the contact line, because a fiber optic cable drone is going to get you.
Good segue
to the next article.
You did it. I don't know if you did that on purpose.
I did, actually.
I'm going to give you
that's masterful.
I'm going to give you credit. I'm going to give you total credit for that.
Impressive.
Okay. This article, which I thought this was really good, it was a little bit insightful into what's going on with the fiber optic FPV drones, or let's just say fiber optic drones in general. So the article is from TWZ.com, and I'll put all these articles and videos in the show notes as usual. Inside Ukraine's fiber optic drone war. And the subtitle is Ukrainian commander gives us new details on the advantages and limitations of using fiber optic cables to control FPV attack drones. And here's a picture of it. Here is it looks like a simulated explosive, maybe an RPG, 2 batteries, because these things are going out. And the farther they go out, the bigger these containers of the fiber optic glass cables get. So you need more battery power because you're going out farther. And this article said that they're reaching out. The Russians have reached out beyond 30 kilometers.
Wow.
But there was an article the other couple of days ago that said the Ukrainians have reached out 40 kilometers.
I mean, if they have, it's still onesie twosie. It's not in mass production yet.
Yeah. Oh, of course. They have a scale problem. And this article talks about the scale problem. They said, this article is basically an interview with a commander that has a drone unit under his command. And it said, how many of your drones, your FPV drones or whatever, are fiber optic drones? And he said 5%. And
Wow.
I was like, holy shit. All we hear about in the last, God, how long has it been? 9 months in the drone war is fiber optic drones.
Yeah, they made it sound like it was 95% fiber optic, but it's not true. It's the exact opposite of that.
It turns out Ukraine doesn't have any fucking fiber optic drones if you extrapolate from this unit. And the problem, he said, is just simply supply and demand. That's what he said.
Yeah.
He said everybody wants fiber optic drones. The fiber optic comes from primarily China. We don't have indigenous production up and running of glass cables. Maybe Corning, U.S. company can come in and help them. But I thought that was interesting. Wow.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you just look at the image of I guess that spool holding how many clicks of fiber optic cable, I assume when that thing is holding 30 kilometers worth of line,
it's huge.
That's weighing a lot.
Huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is probably a 10 click.
Okay.
A 10 kilometer drone, which I think, my understanding, that's kind of the standard, is they're going out 10 kilometers. Some other facts that he says in this article about drones, FPV drones, that are fiber optics. Let's see. He says that approximately 50% probability that a totally functional drone, when it takes off, will strike its target.
Which, I don't know, you guys, like, to me, as an Air
bad.
Force pilot, I find that to be pretty fucking low. Like, if you told, an F-16 or F-15 or a bomber pilot, I want you to go attack, like, a position, and he comes back half the time saying, oh, I failed. I didn't blow anything up. I'd be like, that's a pretty big failure. Like, we expect you to drop something or blow something up 90% or more of the time, not 50% of the time.
But as soon as that F-16 takes off or that F-35 takes off, now you have $30,000 an hour that you're burning through.
Yep.
That GBU, whatever that you dropped, that costs $200,000. So, I mean, if I lose a $1,200, according to the article, a $1,200 fiber optic drone, who cares? I have another one. Well, these guys don't because they have a a supply issue.
It's not a money issue. It's just that they don't have enough of these things. So
it's probably a money issue too.
I'd want to get that up to 90%. I guess I'm interested or curious to understand why these things are not hitting or blowing up what they need to do half the time.
He does kind of mention this in the article. He says that fiber optic cable is kind of not very robust. So
I remember reading
snag,
there's potential fucking quality issues.
Break. Yeah, there's quality issues because he said in this article, and I've heard this over and over again in Ukraine, probably every time I go to Ukraine, that the drones that they get from the Army of Drones program from the state, from the Ukrainian government, are pieces of shit.
This is true.
And pieces of shit. The stuff that they get from the government is garbage. That is why the government has now started, we talked about the gamification on one episode of drone warfare. You start showing success, they reinforce success by just giving you money or whatever you want. They don't send you stuff anymore. They give you money or they give you the exact thing that you want because based on the points that you get from killing a Russian or a tank or whatever. And the other part of this, besides the quality and the getting to the target, he said pilot skill. So the ability of the pilot to actually drive this into the target. And we've talked about this on the podcast, right, Eric? You know, keep moving, keep running, don't stop, don't just resign yourself to your fate because you hear a drone right over your head. Because the pilot sucks, the batteries run out, the fiber optic cable breaks, lots of crap could happen, especially if that fiber optic cable is being dragged.
Right.
Let's say drug.
I think go with dragged.
Dragged?
I think it's
50 kilometers.
dragged. He dragged.
Dragged?
I don't know.
It's being dragged. It's being drugged. It's dragging itself. So, yeah, a lot of interesting little tidbits came out of this article.
And no mention of AI or autonomous drones.
Yeah.
Although
he didn't
I
mention
would
that.
contend that the fiber optic cable thing is going to be a fad until you can just move on to AI enabled drones that don't care if you shoot EW at it because it'll just continue flying on.
Maybe, but why would you stop? If it's $1,200 for an FPV drone, why would you ever stop using fiber optics if there's no counter to it? Let's say the AI drone comes along and it's better and it's more convenient, I guess, and it has automatic targeting so the pilot error is taken out of it. But why would you ever stop doing FPV drones? I mean, we're going to be
fiber
doing
optic cable. You mean?
Yeah, with the fiber optics. I mean, that's like saying, look, there's better ways to block infantry from running across the field. Why are we still using concertina wire that was invented in the 60s? Because it works and it's cheap. I think we're going to be in World War IV. We're still going to be seeing fiber optic drones. Let's go to a video. Let me make sure I have it. Here is a video of. I gotta find the right one. Dude's walking through a field, and there's so many fiber optic cables that they just get caught in it.
Which made me think, like, and maybe this is like the left-wing California hippie in me. Can you recycle those? Can you do something with those at that point? Can you, I don't know, make a cool bracelet or something like that?
I'm sure the Ukrainians are very, ingenuitive. They'll come up with something. Okay, here we go. Let's see this. He's just dragging all these cables. The whole field is full of fiber optic cables. They're everywhere. Anyways, I thought that was interesting. It's polluting everywhere. It's another form of pollution, ecological disaster.
So then that area would be a unit using fiber optic cables, like very concentrated. There's obviously a unit physically flying out of there a lot to come up with that much stuff. Or you just randomly walking through a field and you've got, I don't know, scores or hundreds of fiber optic cables. Then a unit specializing in that might be operating out of there, I'm guessing.
So we talk about recovering mines or clearing fields for agriculture of the landmines. What are glass cables going to do to your plow? How are you going to conduct agricultural business in a field that has thousands of string that are glass that go for 50 kilometers? I don't think you are.
You're going to clean them up?
Doesn't look good for Ukraine. Ukraine's an agricultural society. Man, 1/3 of it is agriculture.
So what, do you think their agricultural production is going to stop because of this?
I don't think so. I think
they're just going to find a way. I mean, there's got to be a simple way to get those things
walk
off
through the field and clean it up?
Maybe, maybe just walk through the field.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, if you have to clear a field, you just need to grab a rake and just walk one direction from one end to the other with that rake, and you'll basically capture it all, right?
Perfect idea. Yes, rake the fields.
That'd be a good job
for there, so you can find anyone to do it.
Good job for Tony.
We talked. Yeah, I think I will apply. We talked about if a FPV drone is chasing you down or stalking you, don't stop running. Never stop running, because you might survive. And here's a video of a Russian that has resigned himself to his fate.
Bad move.
Trigger
Bad
warning.
move.
Russians are killed in this video.
You don't see him actually get killed, though.
We don't. So he's just, this FPV drone is just like,
oh, dude, what are
hey,
you
what's
doing?
up, buddy?
Hey, guys.
What
What's
are
up,
you
pal?
doing?
Why so sad? Why so sad, buddy? And,
He's just studying him.
well, it's a sad thing. I mean, this is probably kind of mentally traumatic for the pilot too. You know, PTSD of drone pilots and everything and
The
such.
guy's obviously shell shocked, exhausted.
Yeah.
Brain is just fried.
And
He's got
goodbye.
nothing left. Oh,
Goodbye.
good Lord.
But yeah, I mean,
damn.
I'll be
if
wounded
you had
already.
the will to live in that moment,
Yes.
I'd pull out my knife and I tried to get behind it and cut the fiber optic cable, baby.
Well, only 5% of the drones are fiber optic, so that's probably an electronically controlled radio signal drone. And that's why you keep moving. Keep moving. Don't
He's
give up.
wounded. He's exhausted. He's done.
Don't give up. Never stop.
Yeah, but you can't, like, I mean, unfortunately, it seems like the average Russian soldier, you can't just run back to base and life gets better there, right?
There's not a lot you
torture
can do.
and do other shit to you.
Really, the only thing you can do is keep moving or go into a bunker. And, oh, by the way, shut the door. Nobody shuts the door of the bunkers. You got to keep moving. Here we go. And this is one guy that had an idea. His idea was,
Дивіться на його
here we go.
кров.
Here comes the, oh, I missed it. There.
Він не
Boom.
ісконно
He
русський
kicks the
чоловік.
drone.
Гляньте, це вже
This
десь
guy
набирають,
kicks the
я
drone.
не знаю,
And let's see how that worked out for him.
світу.
Here's
От
the
летить
overview.
воювати. Можливо, він був футболістом або каратистом. Ну, він
And
гарно,
kicks the
типа,
drone,
як
and he goes into outer space.
має
See, he
візію,
should have
да.
grabbed a stick or a branch and done that at least. He would have increased.
Можливо,
Yeah.
At least
Yeah.
he has one leg still, it looks like.
I don't think he has anything. I think that blew him into,
I
as
saw
we
at least
say
one leg there.
in the military,
intact.
smithereens. I don't think that's true.
Well, if he's
I don't
got
think
one
that's true.
leg, they'll put him back in the line. Like, what are you complaining about?
That's right. He gets 12 days of R&R and recuperation, and then he's going to send it back with a crunch. The Russians will send him right back.
But again, like the average person who's fighting in the Russian army doesn't exactly have a college degree or even a high school degree, if that, right? Not to mention that they're bringing in
No.
a bunch of
No.
mercenaries from Latin America, Africa, Middle East,
Africa. No.
and what you get promised to get paid what $2,000 or $4,000 a month until you die.
It's like right now, I think it's like $2,500 a month and maybe a $30,000 bonus, depending on what the local government pitches in with the federal government, with the Kremlin.
That's a lot of money for him. It makes it worth it for him.
What did we say the average wage per month in Russia is? Like 400? Did we say that? 400 US dollars, which is 18 trillion rubles. 400 US dollars. I don't know. I thought we mentioned that like a long time ago.
But you can still stay at the Hilton Moscow for $100 on the military rate if you go to
Nice.
Hilton.com. There's my little pitch if Hilton wants to have me as a paid sponsor. I'm dead
sponsor
serious.
this podcast. Hilton.com so we can
Get your $100
Travel.
military
So
room
I
rate
just-
at the Moscow Hilton.
announcements. Yes.
So I just did a search, and one search here said the average salary is $14,000 a year.
Okay,
you
so that's
divide
like
that
what
times
1,100.
12. That's about-
about
yeah,
1,100. A little over
$1,100.
$1,000.
666 repeating
What?
per month.
So they're double their salary, basically, the average salary. But that's probably not the average salary for people in the stands and Siberia. Those guys are not making. That's Russian average salary. Their average salary, the average salary of the people fighting in Russia or in Ukraine right now, is probably $400 a month, if that.
Yeah, but
And
like
now-
if you live in downtown Moscow or St. Petersburg, like your pay is easily over $20,000 or $30,000 a month at that point. Like the closer you live to like the city center, then obviously the farther out
A
you get
year.
from the capital.
You mean a year?
Yeah.
A year. Yeah. Yeah. No, those guys are not signing up to go die in Ukraine for $2,500
No.
and a $60,000 death bonus that they may or may not get because the Kremlin just says, "Oh, they're missing. Show us the body. Show us the dead body of your son, and then we'll give you their bonus."
Which
Maybe.
the Ukrainians are the ones actually showing the families the dead bodies in Russia, right? Don't they get a hold of the families
on
and tell
signal
them?
channels?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's terrible. Hey, this is a military. It's War Week Friday, so we can talk about whatever we want. Let's talk about this article. I'm going to share this. Here we go. I'm going to share this one. U.S. Coast Guard veteran turned porn actress lured her accused rapist to the woods before killing him as revenge. And here we have a picture of the former coastie. Apparently, this lady, Chelsea Perkins, age 35, was allegedly raped by Matthew Dunmere in 2017. And then 4 years later, she invites him to stay at a bed and breakfast or VRBO next to a national forest. And then the next morning they go out and she caps him in the back of the skull. And she apparently had an OnlyFans site. I don't know about that. Looking at the picture, I don't know what to say about that.
Well, I looked at this, and if you look around, you can find the picture of the guy she killed. He looks kind of like a punk rock version of Nick Lovin. There we go. There he is.
There he is.
That's the dude.
Yeah, it looks like
guy...
Nick Lovin after he didn't get any jobs after doing super bad.
Here, yeah. So she plead deal down to 20 years. Okay, I get it. If she was raped, she probably was, if she was angry enough to kill this guy in cold blood. But here's the rest of the story. This guy's mother conducts her own investigation and thinks that she has found her son's killer, which she did not. But she went to this supposed killer's house, shot this lady. This lady survives. And then when Dunmere's mother gets pulled over shortly thereafter by the police, she commits suicide before showing her license and registration. What a crazy fucking story.
So it's called
what a crazy
PID,
story.
Positive identification of a target. So the mom did not effectively identify the target or the real person and tried to whack the wrong person.
Wow.
Here's something about J.D. Vance.
Oh, good Lord. Keep it moving. Keep it moving.
Keep moving. Keep it going.
So taking the law into your own hands, never a good idea. I don't think that's a good idea.
Unless you do your homework.
It's War Week Friday.
With Dear Glorious Leader in charge, she'll probably can ask for a pardon. She'll probably get it.
Why? He's only pardoning financial grifters and...
No, I thought he's pardoned
Sloppy Steve.
I thought he's pardoned like a few military people for war crimes and other things like that before. Hasn't he?
Oh, I'm sure he has.
Yeah.
Didn't he pardon that Marine that had some war crimes in Baghdad?
That's what I'm saying.
First term. I think that was first term.
Dear Glorious Leader loves porn stars, and it isn't like...
I see where you're going with this. Well, that's brilliant. Yes.
It isn't like she killed a good person, like she killed a bad person.
Well, we don't know that for sure, but probably.
Allegedly.
Probably. If she's angry enough, in my head, if she's angry enough to lure him and shoot him in the back of the head in the forest, there's probably some foundation of misdoing there. Pretty good foundation.
Yeah.
Because she's a logical thinker.
Yeah, she was in the Coast Guard.
A reasoning, logical thinker.
This is a military operation. We're going to do military deception, lure our target into the kill box, and then execute. And then basically just surrender because she was on cameras, license plate cameras. She didn't even try to hide her tracks.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's on purpose or what, but she didn't even try to
get
away with it.
She should easily get a pardon then.
She should get a pardon.
Yeah.
Let's start a think tank where we We work on getting OnlyFans actresses pardoned.
For justified killings. Not unjustified killings. Only justified.
Well, we don't know. Nobody knows for sure. We'll just blanket. Everybody gets a pardon if you're an OnlyFans.
Punk Rock McLovin looked like he had it coming. I'm just saying.
He probably did. All right. Hey, good chat. I have one announcement. For the next 2 weeks, I will be on field research. So there will not be any Flash Traffic podcast for 2 weeks.
That's devastating.
I will record video from the field, but I doubt if I will be able to upload it into a podcast or video podcast format. So summer break for the Flash Traffic podcast. We'll come back beginning of the third week in June. And I don't want to dox myself and say where I'm going, but if there are Russians there, I am going to where the Russians are. So, and not a good way.
And we have to do my usual disclaimer that my views are my own and not those of the
Correct.
U.S. Naval War College, Air Force, or Department of Defense or U.S. government. All right, done.
That's right. As a PhD professor at the United States Naval War College, wearing a pink tank top with a unicorn riding a dinosaur.
Lethality.
I get it.
If I did this going into combat, I'd get some kills initially because people would just be fucking frozen in tracks.
If you wore that into combat, the Trump administration would require you to be discharged from the military as the policy as of last week. Okay, good chat. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us in the Flash Traffic Podcast.
It's been a pleasure.
Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The Flash Traffic Podcast.